Hi everyone. First of all, excuse me. I'm making this particular video while I'm starting to get a cold, so I have a little bit of a cough going on here, and may not sound my best, but I just was in the mood to make a video today. I've been watching a lot of videos, and got me inspired by other people. So I'm going to make something just off the top of my head. I thought I'd do a video where I'm going to show some solo Beatle albums and that they're a lot better than people suggest, or else it's still overlooked. I think that people should give it a little more attention if people are interested in the Beatles or solo Beatles. So these are in no particular order. I'm going to try to mix them up a little bit. And these are the ones that came to mind right away. So here we go. First, I'll start with this 1979 release, the self-titled album, George Harrison. Now, this album is not an album that I would say anymore gets knocked. It doesn't really get knocked. On the contrary, lately I've been seeing that this album's been actually enjoying a lot more praise than it used to get. So that's a good thing, and it's well deserving of it. I know some fans out there think this is the very best George Harrison album, but the reason that I'm mentioning it is because it's overlooked. It seems to get lost in the shuffle amidst his more renowned albums that everybody talks about, like All Things Must Pass for one, Living in the Material World for another. But the George Harrison self-titled album, it's very mellow. Uh, George wasn't exactly the hardest rocker in his solo career to begin with, but when you just want to be in a nice, relaxing mood, this album fits the bill. A lot of great tracks on here. The song "Not Guilty" that he did with the Beatles, or attempted to do with the Beatles, and never was released until later on the Anthology collection for the White Album. It has another version here. He released it here in 1979. It's a slower version, much more laid-back version, but it's beautiful. There's a sequel to Here Comes the Sun called Here Comes the Moon. I love the single that he had out in 79 from this album, Blow Away. I think it's one of the best singles he ever put out. I really wish it had done better in the charts. A lot of good stuff here. Soft Hearted Hannah, just kind of like a partying kind of song. That one is. It's a lot of fun. Your Love Is Forever, beautiful ballad. The song Faster, George's tribute to auto racing, which he was in the 70s. He got into that. Just a lot of good stuff here. This is off the top of my head, as I say. Just a lot of well-deserving stuff here. Oh, If You Believe is good. Love Comes to Everyone. Now I'm actually doing another review of the album itself. All I'm saying is, if you're a fan of George, you're a fan of the Beatles, you're not familiar with this album, give it a try. Let me know what you think. And don't be afraid to tell me if you disagree with any of these. I know at least one everybody's still going to disagree with. I'm going to go into Ringo for a minute. This is a more recent Ringo album from the year 2010. Everybody tends to write Ringo off, even some Beatles fans and Ringo fans. I love this album. Out of the more recent albums Ringo's done, and I say recent, I mean the last, I don't know, let's see, we're into 2017 now, let's say 15 years or so. This is one of my favorites from him. I just think it's really good. Ringo 2010. The album is called Why Not? And CD, you can get it on if you don't want to get the vinyl. There's the vinyl also. Just some good stuff on here. You got Paul helping him out on the bass with a song here called Peace Dream, which I like a lot. Fill in the Blanks is great. The Other Side of Liverpool, a tribute to Liverpool, which Ringo has been repeating, in a lot of songs. I mean, this wasn't the first time he did the Liverpool 8 album. Really, that was a couple of years before this, and I just think Ringo's in great form here. There's a song here, Everyone Wins. That's really good. That's an older song. I think there was another version of that cut at one point, but it's really good on here. I just really like it. There's a real crazy track at the end called Who's Your Daddy? And yes, I'm going to be guilty. I didn't do my homework. I forget the name of the woman who sings with him. You could tell everybody in the comments, but that's kind of a ridiculously over-the-top fun track. But the highlight of this album, one of them, is a rare duet with his friend and former Beatles partner, Paul McCartney. Okay, they sing a song called Walk With You, where both of them are together on it. It is a beautiful song, and it should get a lot more attention in the Beatles community. So, why not? Take a chance on Why Not? Couldn't resist that. All right. All right, here's the album. Let's just get it over with. Here's the album. Everybody's going to say thanks, Joe, but no dice. You're not selling me on this album, and that's John Lennon's 1972 album, "Sometime in New York City." I know there's some people out there that actually enjoy this album because I've heard it in the comments when I've talked about this album. I did a review on it a while ago. I don't think it's the best thing John ever did, not by a long shot, but I like the album. I enjoy it for what it is, and the actual reviews that I've made of some of these albums, not all of them yet have I done, but most of them, say everything I want to say anyway in those reviews. But this is just John and Yoko together, which is one of the reasons right off the bat why people turn a deaf ear to it. They don't want to know anything about Yoko. But they were into an idea of kind of like creating a newspaper, headlines of the day, whatever was in the paper, whatever was news. And they were singing political theme songs. They were naive in a lot of ways. John and Yoko meant well, but sometimes they kind of like were a little offbeat and a little off their rockers in some ways. I don't care. I admire the passion. I don't agree with everything they sing about here, not at all. Some of it I do, some of it I don't. But Yoko has some of her best stuff on here. I mean, say what you will about John after having been in the Beatles and after having released great albums like Plastic Ono Band and Imagine, coming down to this. But, I mean, Yoko's really, really fantastic on here. Her songs here, We're All Water, is a lot of fun. I love Born in a Prison. I love her song Sisters Oh Sisters. She's got, that sounds like something like I always call it a girl group song. Sounds like something I would hear from the girl groups in the early 60s, the Dixie Cups or something. That's what it sounds like to me. I don't know. I really enjoy it. And John is trying his best. New York City, the song New York City, is one of his few rockers in his solo career. And it really moves along and rocks. It's got a great guitar solo, then a piano solo. And I just think it's just really a great rocker. Okay, other songs we have here, kind of a duet. Angela, where John and Yoko sing about Angela Davis. I don't really know exactly if I agree with the sentiment in the song so much, but I do enjoy the tune. Luck of the Irish is a nice duet between them. John Sinclair with a song speaking about a guy who was jailed, get 10 years for having 2 marijuana joints. And they did a concert. John wrote this song for John Sinclair and actually did get him free. And I don't want to forget this song, which I really like. It's a song that's entitled "Woman is the Nigger of the World." And I know how controversial that can be, and that has nothing whatsoever to do with what you think. It has to do with just saying that woman is treated like a slave. And it's a women's rights song, pro-woman. I think it really sounds great. I love the musicians on it. People make fun of the Elephant's Memory Band all the time. I realize they weren't the greatest band going. I like them. I think they really sound great on there. Love the saxophone on here. I love the musicianship, and I love the way John sings the song. And it's an album I enjoy. I think it's underrated. What else can I say? I've said a lot about it. Let's go to Paul. I've got 3 albums here by Paul. I should have mixed it in a little earlier. I didn't think of it. First album I'll do by Paul is 1980's McCartney 2, and I'm happy to say, just like the George Harrison album that I started out with, this is an album which I don't feel is as underrated anymore as it used to be. This is an album which is getting its due. A few years ago, Paul released in his new archive series an upgraded version of this where it had a lot more tracks and stuff you didn't usually get to hear, and that only made it feel better. A lot of people are still going to hate this, but I think in today's weird techno pop kind of world, a lot of this really works. And for those who don't know, and I didn't know for many years either, the song "Wonderful Christmas Time," love it or hate it, the reason it sounds as simple and primitive as it does is it was actually, I think, one of the first things to be recorded for this particular home session. It's just Paul goofing around with a machine at home. This is why it starts off the way it does with that electronic sound and everything. That song's not on the album, the Christmas song, but it came from these sessions, and I just really think this is something really different for Paul. You know, him experimenting at home, playing all the instruments, doing a lot of interesting, weird experimentation music. Give it another listen with an open mind. See what you think. I know it doesn't always work. I mean, I try an open mind with stuff, and people want to say, "Oh, you kept your mind closed. That's why you didn't like such and such." Well, sometimes even with it open, it doesn't work. Yeah, I wound up getting myself in a corner here where I have three Paul albums that I'm going to have in a row that I feel underrated. Well, that's because Paul has more material than the other guys in the band. So, okay, from 1993, Off the Ground. Now, I don't want to say too much about this because this is one of the albums that I have really not yet reviewed properly on my channel. I want to get to this one day. All I'm going to say is this came out in 1993. I like it. I think it's a very enjoyable record. Not the best thing he ever did, but a lot of people just either dislike this album or they overlook this album. And I think it warrants another listen. But even more interestingly is a lot of the tracks that were not included on this are even better than the stuff that some of the songs that made it. If he could ever put this into his archive series and revisit it and put a lot of those bonus tracks on the collection and not make them downloads only, Paul. If you haven't picked up on that yet, please. I know a guy that's signing a petition to try to make sure that the bonus cuts, 16 of them, on the upcoming Flowers in the Dirt release by Paul and his archives collection, that they don't just get to be download only. Capitol and MPL, Paul's company, are thinking of putting those songs, 16 of them, bonus tracks, out only as downloads and not giving you physical media like on a CD or a vinyl or anything. And if you go back just several handful of videos, you'll see that I talk about it, and I'll show people in that video where you can sign a petition to try to get a physical copy of those bonus tracks and not just a download card or something somewhere in space. You'd be floating just like these guys floating in the air with the cloud. Anyway, underrated album. Okay, I'm going to go back to Ringo one more time, and then we'll have the last Paul album. I talk about this album a lot. Ringo's 1981 Stop and Smell the Roses. At the time, nobody wanted to know. Still not many people want to know. But again, when you take Ringo Starr as a solo performer and you just look at him as Ringo, the personality, the cut-up, the funny guy, the personality, the schmaltzy character, this is really an enjoyable Ringo record. It has contributions on here by Paul McCartney. It has contributions on here by George Harrison, by Harry Nilsson, by Ron Wood, Stephen Stills. I'm sorry if I'm not thinking right now. It's not perfect, but for Ringo, it's a good, solid Ringo record. And I stand by that. Definitely an improvement over the albums that he had been making before this in the 70s. This was 1981. And unfortunately, John Lennon missed the boat. He was all set to work on his a song for this album, but he passed away. That's a nice way of putting it. He was taken from us before he had a chance to contribute. There was a song that you might have heard if you're a Lennon fan and you kind of listened to the Lost Lennon tapes and heard it. It's called Life Begins at 40. That was possibly going to be included. And he also might have given Ringo, believe it or not, the Lennon song Nobody Told Me. I think at some point in one of the takes he says, this is a song for somebody else, maybe Ringo or something like that. I don't think John intended to really necessarily release Nobody Told Me himself. Of course, in 1984, 4 years after John died and after 3 years after this album, Nobody Told Me did in fact get released as a John song. Okay, but give this one a shot. I mean, you have to give it a try. It's Ringo we're talking about. Ringo has different parameters to reach. I think it's a better Ringo record. Okay, this is my last one for this video, what I consider is a underrated, overlooked album by Paul. And I really hope this one has not yet received its due. And I really hope it gets there, because in some ways, if I'm going to pick just one album I think is the most criminally underrated in Paul's entire catalog, Back to the Egg, 1979. Beautiful cover, beautiful cover. The last official Wings album. And although it has some ballady, syrupy stuff on here, which is fine too, that's Paul's forte, and I don't begrudge him that. But it was really good on this album to see him get back to real rock. I don't know if that's what "back to the egg" means, but uh, he got back on this to some serious rock and roll here, and there's some heavy tracks on here. "Getting Closer," the opening track, a song that I love called "So Glad to See You Here." Uh, "Old Siam, Sir," which is really a good rocker. Um, Drawing a blank here. "Spin It On." Is that punk? I don't know all kinds of music. Uh, pretty damn good. And of course, it's got the ballad here, "Arrow Through Me," which is one of the most popular tracks from here. The song single "Good Night Tonight" was recorded right around this time. It didn't appear on the album, and um, I think that it would have sold better had that hit been concluded on here, but it wasn't. I don't really. It would have sold better, but I don't think it really fits the album, to tell you the truth. So I'm not gonna really cry about it too much. And it's B-side too, "Daytime Nighttime Suffering" from '79, which is a really good. Do I dare say disco-esque flavor for Paul and Wings? It's a fan favorite. I know that. That might have went on here nice too, but this album doesn't sound like the flavor of "Good Night Tonight" and "Daytime Nighttime Suffering" single. So I don't know. It would have sold better. A couple of better songs too included. Does it fit the idea? Not really. But anyway, if you want a harder edge Paul, give this a try, please. Anyway, that's it off the cuff. Hey, I didn't even have an urge to cough. Not bad. Usually when I've been talking the last couple of days, it's been making me cough. Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. Say this was nothing special, just something I whipped up. Have a good one.